If you are enjoying the Cowboys Report, show it by liking today's video. Very simple here. The more likes we get, the more views we get, everything else in between. Help us out by liking today's Cowboys Report. Please and thank you. A lot of news to get into. We'll get to Stephen Jones. I want to mention what Brian Schottenheimer said in an NFL Network /NFL.com article about the Micah Parsons deal. He said he expects the deal to get done, which, again, shouldn't really be a surprise. Schotty saying, quote, the deal is going to get done. Of course, we like deals done sooner rather than later. And this is kind of the part where I feel like Stephen Jones threw his voice into Brian Schottenheimer. There are two sides to every negotiation. Just know when they get back, if they're the right type of person, which the guys we are talking about are, that they'll be ready to play. Now, Shotty was also asked if there is a scenario that he thinks exists where, maybe Micah Parsons isn't a member of the Cowboys going into the 2025 campaign. Shotty said, I wouldn't think so. He's an elite player. He's a guy who can wreak havoc on opposing defenses for a long time in a Cowboys uniform. Again, I fully expect this deal to get done. I would be very surprised if we got to week 1, and probably before that, if it wasn't done. I think we are very much in it's when the deal gets finalized, not if the deal gets finalized. That's why you had the one time that Ian Rappaport mentioned Micah trade possibility, and then they haven't mentioned it again since then, because everybody involved wants it to get done. It's just, as we'll get into here in a second, very classic Cowboys with a lack of urgency in getting deals done at the right time. So in general, not specific dates, just before the season begins, we'll put that as the real deadline there. What is your confidence level in the Micah Parsons deal getting done? It is the pinned comment on today's video. So if the ad comes here on the YouTube side, great. Take advantage of it. Head down there and let me know. Scale it 1 to 10, 10 of course on the high end, your confidence level in the Micah Parsons contract getting done this offseason. Now, Stephen Jones also had some interesting comments on waiting too long to do deals and things like that. Here's what Stephen said. We've done them early before, and we've waited until the end to do them. A lot of it is just the negotiations itself. Some of them take longer than others. We put zero credence into people saying we wait too long. Now, here's the thing about Stephen. He's contradicting himself. All the way back in 2021, as part of an interview with, I think it was WFAA, he was asked, what's your biggest miss? What's the one thing you'd like to kind of go back and change? His answer was, quote, probably would have signed Dak the first time around. It would have been better for everybody. You can't have it both ways. You can't say, we don't put any credence into not getting deals done early, and then say, yeah, we didn't get the deal done early. This is the stuff that bothers me about Stephen Jones and the Cowboys as a whole. They refuse to admit when they've made mistakes. They refuse to do hand-up accountability. They refuse to admit their way is flawed. It's never their fault. It's always something else. It's you out there admitting you waited too long to do the Dak deal, but now you refuse to admit you've waited too long on other deals. Just stop it. Someone asked me, he's like, there's got to be a reason why the Cowboys wait on these deals. Just don't be that stupid. I'm like, they think they're doing everything right when they're not. The refusal to address one of their biggest systemic issues, not doing deals done properly and correctly, doesn't indicate hope that things are going to get better. It's extremely frustrating. If they had been early on the Micah Parsons contract, they'd been early on the CeeDee Lamb contract, if they'd been early on the Dak contract, they'd have saved a tremendous amount of money. Just not how they choose to operate. Today's show, and a lot more Cowboys news to come, is made possible by PrizePicks. It is the best place to get real money sports action. Simply download the PrizePicks app over at prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. Again, you simply pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. I am a big fan of the flex play. It was a prize pick creation. It allows you to get a pick wrong and still come out on top. A lot of less thans here for football. The Lions' offense might not be as good. Travis Kelce is going to have a lesser workload as he ages. Commanders probably don't want Jay Daniels to run quite as much. Again, go download the PrizePicks app today over at prizepicks.com/CLNS. Use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS to get that $50 instantly once you play your first $5 lineup. Stephen Jones also had a Dak Prescott injury update, with the Cowboys eligible to start their off-season program on April 7th because they have a new head coach, so they get it 2 weeks earlier. Here's what Stephen had to say. Dak's doing great. He's coming along. He's thrilled with where he is, and I know that the trainers are too. I feel like he's done a hell of a job. He'll have some limitations, yeah, but you know Dak. He is a worker. We're thrilled with where he is. Now, I would interpret limitations for the offseason workout as more of a pitch count, which I think makes sense. It's April. You know, that's not kind of everyone to an extent, especially everyone coming off an injury, is on a bit of a pitch count. But as has been the case, he's going to be good to go here. I would not worry at all. I know there's been a lot of bad information out there of like, won't be ready for camp. He's already out there throwing it and working out. He may have seen some videos on like he's good to go. Now, that doesn't mean you can't be worried big picture about the injuries, because I think at some level we all should be. There's been too many in a row, or at least too many in semi-consecutive years. So be honest with me. Are you worried, just big picture, even just a little bit of worry about Dak's injuries? Because this is, you can wind back the clock to 2 or 3 years ago. I'd said the injuries were my main concern. Why for yes and for no? Let me know in the comments section of today's show. Stephen also hinted that the Cowboys were not done yet with looking to add players in free agency. Cowboys have a 90-man roster limit, just like the rest of the NFL. They've got 74 players right now. They've got 10 draft picks. That is part of the 16 roster spots open. There may be some cuts coming in the not-too-distant future. But the one area I think they will absolutely literally have to add someone from a sheer roster numbers perspective is quarterback. As expected, the Cowboys are still exploring the backup cornerback market. Cooper Rush is gone. It's Dak and Will Grier as the only other QBs on the roster. Stephen Jones had this to say. Yes, still an option that we are looking at. We could do it via trade. We could do it via what's available out there. There's lots of ways player acquisition occurs. Trade is one of them, and certainly so is signing available guys. Look at the full package. You're probably not going to get all the things just right or exactly what you want. But at the same time, you want to get the very best guy that we think gives us the chance to go out there and compete with Grier and be good in that room with Dak and Grier and whomever else we add. Draft-wise, some potential day 3 options. We'll see if Will Howard, Quinn Ewers, Tyler Shuck get there. Those guys may or may not get to you in the 5th round. Kyle McCord might not get to you in the 5th round. A Dylan Gabriel, a Riley Leonard might end up getting there as well. Curtis Work will probably be there. But there are, which I think is kind of what Steven's alluding to, the guys that get to you on day 3 get to you on day 3 for a reason. That's not something to completely ignore. The free agent options, meanwhile, there are notable-ish names. You know, Joe Flacco is a longtime vet backup QB. Drew Lock, tank commander. Trey Lance still out there. I don't think that's very likely, but I guess you can't technically rule it out, despite what Steven said after the season ended. Carson Wentz is out there. Case Keenum, C.J. Beathard. Technically a Pro Bowler, Tyler Huntley, which is still the funniest Pro Bowler in NFL history. And then Desmond Ritter's young, but he's kind of in the journeyman stage. We'll also look at the trade options here in a little bit on what the Cowboys have available to them. We'll spend more time on free agency videos as well. We're going to have Brian Schottenheimer speak, Steven kind of talking about not being done in free agency. A lot more videos to come here on the channel, so make sure you guys are subscribed. Some running back help. Look, that's also, I think, a clear path for the Cowboys. They are very much looking to draft another back. I think if they had their way, they would take a back fairly early. Now, Stephen Jones had this to say. We like the 2 backs we signed in free agency. We'll see if there's a young back there as well that can help us in the draft. We're certainly wide open to that. Just see what comes our way. Not just open, but wide open. feels like something that should probably be acknowledged there. The contracts for Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders, by the way, are not contracts that necessarily lock themselves into the Cowboys roster. This is the same guy who, of course, was like, Royce Freeman can be our RB2 this upcoming season. We think he's that good, and then he didn't make the team. So, I would always take a grain of salt with what Steven has to say about player talent in March and April. This draft class, though, is stacked. It is a fantastic group of backs. You're going to have probably double-digit guys inside or near my top 100. Going to have 15-plus in the top. Might be 20-plus in the top 150, honestly. It is a stacked class. You will be able to get somebody. It'd be weird if you couldn't. It would almost be self-inflicted in some capacity if you did not. So name a running back who you would like to draft. Could be Genty, could be somebody later on. Let me know in the comments section of today's show. Finally, some extension talk here. Stephen Jones was, in this case, asked about contract extensions for Daron Bland, Jake Ferguson, who didn't mention names, but those are the guys he's talking about here when he says, sure, those are really good football players that we want to keep around. There are scenarios where we sit down and have a visit with them. You have to have two sides to get a negotiation done, and we'll look at that with those guys. This is a non-answer. It's also the answer of, hey, if you come to us and you want to take less than maybe what your market value is, we can get a deal done. Wouldn't be the first time the Cowboys had a big-time player to extend and they paid somebody else first. Would not be the first time. Would borderline be expected to an extent, I suppose. There are four guys that stand out. Micah Parsons, the obvious one. They have the fifth-year option on Tyler Smith. That should get done this offseason, or else the Cowboys are once again late to a contract. Daron Bland is going to be a free agent this year. I'd like to get him done. Fergie, I'm a little bit more like, let's see, because he didn't have a very good year last year. But can you self-scout properly and identify who's going to be good for you long-term? Because if you do it right, it can save you money. Or you do it wrong and you get another missed contract for an extension. So those are four names to monitor here. Not pre-draft, but definitely post-draft before training camp.